image and your brand are intertwined. So as an entrepreneur, you have to ask yourself, am I aligned with my image and the brand and the level of success that I want to be achieving? Hi, I'm Melanie Benson here. I'm known as America's leading small business optimizer. And in this weekly podcast, I like to bring you guests who can help you look at the little things in your business that if you optimize them, they can have a huge impact on your results and your level of happiness and success. And today, I want to introduce you to somebody who I think is going to take us on a journey that maybe we're not used to looking at, but can have a huge impact on the way people perceive us and how attracted and magnetized they are to do work with us. Now, JuliAnn Stitick is a personal brand and image expert with YourSuccessStyle.com and aligns your personal brand and image with the level of success you desire. And I've seen some of her transformations, and they're mind-blowing what she's able to do with the way in which people are expressing themselves through the different mediums that we experience them. So, JuliAnn, thanks so much for being here today.
I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to talk about what I'm passionate about.
Yes, me too. And, I love it too. It's just not the area I specialize in. So that's why I like bringing you on, right? But how did you get into this part of, business development, the brand and our style and how they integrate together?
Well, of course, probably like everybody else, it's kind of a journey. I mean, my first step into the image world was I took a part-time job with Nordstrom, the happiest place on earth.
I love Nordstrom's.
I do too. And I worked there for a few years as a personal stylist. And what I loved about doing that is that I had the opportunity to really work with people and help them really build out a wardrobe that was not only practical, but that they felt really good in. But when I was there, I knew that there was something more to the picture. And before I had gone into this fun part-time job at Nordstrom, I was in the corporate world and in some marketing. And so what has really evolved for me, I've had my business now for almost 10 years. And what's really evolved for me is all of the elements around not only image, but how that gets aligned with your marketing and your branding and basically everywhere that you're showing up. And so I get the opportunity to really take the pieces that I've been gifted with as far as like having a fun marketing mind and strategies really, really crucial to the work that I do. And how can we take all of those pieces and really align them in a personal brand and image that reflects somebody really, and I know this word gets overheard, but it's authentically, who are you? Not trying to step people into somebody that they're not, but to try to step people into the best of who they are and how can they show themselves in the best light and really attract those ideal clients to them, because we can't work with everybody. We want to work with the right people. And so that's the goal. It's like what I'm doing is helping them narrow that target market.
So anyway, we're on a theme this week on niching and targeting. I've seen it coming up a lot. And I think people are starting to understand the value of, you don't try not to be everything to everyone, but really, put your best foot forward as the most authentic version of you. So the people who are the most profitable, enjoyable, and, inspiring to work with, are going to have that attraction with you.
Exactly.
But I want to dig a little bit deeper into this idea of brand and style, and let's make sure everybody understands what we're talking about, because this could encompass a lot of different elements, right?
Yes.
So on one end, are we talking about the way we dress and how we look, but there's more to it than this, right?
Oh, absolutely. There is. So the work that I do really begins with business assessments. I do business assessments with my clients before I start working with them. And then we do some homework around how are you showing up to other people? Because often how we think we show up is usually wrong, or at least semi-wrong. And so how are other people perceiving us? And how can we take what's the best of how we're being perceived by other people and really align that with a brand? So to answer your question, yes, a piece of that element is wardrobe, and that's a key element. But it's also your body language. It's also the language that you use, not only when you're speaking or writing copy. It's about, how you're showing up strategically and aligned and cohesive in every arena of where you show up in business.
Yeah.
So do you feel like that answers your question?
Yeah, totally. Well, and I know it's bigger than style. That's why I really want to. So it could be the way your website portrays your image and the way in which that's framing you, all the way to how do you use language to convey your message, and when you're going to a networking meeting, what are you wearing, and it's like that whole packaging. Yes, especially exactly. If you're a work-at-home entrepreneur like myself, and I will admit I'm like a yoga pants. And sometimes I'm even in my pajamas way into the late part of the day. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, it was a busy morning. I didn't get very far here.
Join the club. I think everyone does that to some extent that works out of the house. But I will tell you that they've actually done studies that prove that if you get up, well, let me just step back for a second. When we go out to an outside, I call it a JOB. When we go to a JOB, we get up, we shower, we put the makeup on, we, put the clothes together. We make sure we're really well put together. And then we go out to the JOB. Well, when you're an entrepreneur that works out of the home, what can end up happening is that when we don't put ourselves together, there's a little bit of different energy about the way that we interact with people. Because when we're going to a JOB, typically what that means is we're getting dressed and putting ourselves together for other people, right? And so think of the power that comes into play when we get up and shower and really put our best foot forward for ourselves, and how that ends up translating in the energy that happens when we talk to somebody on the phone. Or we're doing a Skype session with someone. And I have to admit, I will tell you that there are times that I'm perfectly dressed from the waist up, and then I've got my pajama pants on and my slippers, because, let's face it, we want to be comfortable, right? So that is really crucial to us speaking and having this level of success that comes from our self-care and what we did for ourselves that morning.
Well said, and I totally appreciate that, and I do know that I have a different mindset when I've gotten dressed up,
yes,
versus the days that I'm a little more comfortable, or maybe I haven't made that transition. I'm really good at being focused, so for me, what I've been wearing has never been important, but it's an important distinction to realize. Like, you do feel a little bit differently. You do feel like you kind of put on your game face, so to speak, when you've got your professional identity on your body.
And then let's take that a step further. Let's say you're running out to the grocery store, or you need to run to Office Depot or something like that. And you think about when if you're incognito with your baseball cap on and your sweats, you're not going to interact with people in the same way that you are if you are feeling like you've put your best foot forward that day. And wow, what if that one person that you don't interact with is a potential client?
That is a good point. And I have had that happen several times in Starbucks.
Or you walk by, you're like, oh gosh.
I'm like, oh, I did not just run into that person in Starbucks. Okay.
Yeah. So my I jokingly say this tongue in cheek, dress as if you're going to run into your ex-boyfriend.
Well said. Well said. Or your ex-girlfriend, depending on
or your ex-girlfriend.
So, let's talk about a couple of things here. First of all, before we go into some strategies, which I can't wait to get into, how would I know, maybe what's a sign that my identity, my persona is out of sync with my personal brand and my style?
Oh, wow. That's a very big question.
All right, maybe just a couple of highlights. We don't have to get too deep into it.
Well, one of the things is you need to look like what you do. I mean, that's about as simple as it gets. And so, just to use a great example of someone recently, that does not live in this area, I met, and she said, I said, so tell me about what you do for a living. And, well, I'm a CPA and I run a wolf sanctuary. And while both of those things are beautiful, they're both beautiful. I didn't know which way to go with it, right? And so that's kind of a first step in picking a lane. What do you want to be known for? What do you want your name to be synonymous with? Is it the Wolf Sanctuary or is it the CPA? And as you can imagine, somebody who's a CPA and looks like a CPA is going to dress very differently than somebody that runs a wolf sanctuary. So it's important. There needs to be some alignment there when you meet someone and you say, well, of course that's what he or she does.
Yeah, I'm being brought back to a time when I was at a lot of live events, a lot of networking events locally, probably 6 or 7 years ago. And there was a woman who was very popular online, and she would show up to these events wearing the most schleppy sweats. I used to think, what? Like, what part of like success are you not getting here? So it was just an interesting dichotomy how my mind disconnected, because I'm thinking there's something really out of sync here. Like, it just didn't feel congruent. And I think that's what you're saying is, the way we're putting ourselves forward immediately, whether we want to admit it or not, human beings do have that judgment piece. We're filtering and perceiving and putting things through these little mechanisms called our mindset. And we're categorizing whether or not this person feels congruent or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that whether, when you say whether we like it or not, people judge. And it doesn't have to be a negative thing. We are discerning people.
Yes.
And, they say, I've heard over and over, it takes, 8 seconds or something like that to make a first impression. A visible first impression happens just like that, the minute you lay eyes on someone. And so when a speaker gets up on stage and they're talking about how to have your best presence as a speaker and your clothes are wrinkled, let me just tell you, that's a disconnect for people. And so it all needs to flow very naturally as when people meet, and this is an example for me, it's not going to be as extreme maybe for somebody else that has another business. But when people say, what do you do? And I say, well, I'm a personal branded image expert. They say, of course you are, because I show up that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. So let's imagine now that the listener on the other side here is going, okay, I know I can do better. I want to put a better foot forward, or they're starting to maybe even question their own style and brand positioning. What are some things that you could share with us today that would help us know what to do next?
Okay, absolutely. Well, I think that your personal brand begins with your foundation. It begins with, what do you want to stand for? Who do you want to be? And one of the biggest mistakes that people do with personal brand and image is they go to the self-packaging piece first. And the truth of the matter is, you don't know how to package yourself until you know what you are, bottom line. And so we really knowing, like I said, what do you want to be known for? How do you want to be known? Do you want to be known as somebody that's funny, that's warm, that's really smart, and of course these things all have to be authentic to who you are, right? But really identifying all of those key pieces of how you show up and how you want to be shown up and what you want to be known for, because those pieces carry forward in all of the different elements of your personal brand. So key one of a personal brand is your foundation. Okay. Then we step into 2, which is your polished image. And you mentioned this at the very beginning about really showing up to the level of success you desire. So this is something that everybody walks away hearing this and it clicks for them. And that is dress for the client that you want to attract. If your clients are high-end clients, you need to show up as a peer to them. You need to show up that way because as you said, there's this judgment piece. That is something that comes into play. And if you're somebody that works with the elite wealthy, and there are people that really care about status, if you show up and you're rumpled and you're wearing clothes that are not in good condition, that's a disconnect, and they will look at you and they will think, maybe not consciously, but it's like asking your prospective financial planner, what are the state of your finances, and really wanting to know, are you really representing what it is that I, as a potential client, ultimately want.
Before you move on, I think this is an important point because I could imagine a question forming right here. But does that mean I have to dress in a way that's not me? Because people have their own unique style, right? And some people are more funky, some people are more clean and polished, and some people are the t-shirt and jeans kind. So You're not saying they have to stop being who they are. What you're saying is they've got to really match the level at which the clients they want to attract in their own personal style. So that could just mean Gucci flip-flops maybe.
Exactly. And I think that the piece is in here that regardless of how it is that you're showing up, making sure that your clothes are in good condition, and that they're not wrinkled, and that there's a polish to however it is that you're showing up.
Yeah, thank you. And that's an important distinction. I think some people starts messing with their head thinking that they're not going to be themselves anymore.
Right. And here's another tip, and this is specifically for the women. I wrote a blog post about this about 6 months ago, and it's why dressing too sexy might be hurting your business.
This is a good one. I'm so glad you're tackling this. Okay.
It's a great one because regardless of the intent, the message that's being sent is that I'm trying to attract you because I'm sexy or because I have cleavage or I'm showing a lot of leg. You want to be whatever it is that you're wearing, whatever your style is, you want to enhance you and your level of professionalism. And I mean, all of the studies that went into this, all of the different studies about why women that dress too sexy for business get overlooked for positions, and whether that's fair or not is irrelevant. It's still happening. And so really making sure that, the focus is on you and your level of expertise, not your cleavage.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too deep into this because it's not really the focal point, but I will say that back when I was in corporate and even, in today's world, being an entrepreneur, I have watched the women particularly who come from more of a wrapping their package for ultimate sexiness. It really did taint the way people perceive them. And it was an interesting dynamic to watch everything unfold. And it's something we have to be aware of, is that our perception, the way people perceive us, is what we're trying to manage here. And we really want to create the best opportunity to do business with our best clients.
And so that's the thing that is so sad, is that so often women who are fully qualified are overlooked because their perception is their reality of you.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to dig a little bit deeper into JuliAnn for a minute, because obviously you're having a profound impact on people. You're making a big difference in the way entrepreneurs can create flow around their own financial destiny by learning to dress better and to create their imaging. But now, how do you find running your own business? And I'm kind of curious, and I like to know from my different interviews, like, what has been the biggest challenge you've personally faced as you've been growing your own business?
Wow. Okay. So personal challenge. I think for me, I'm constantly working towards keeping balance. And the boundaries around, being available as a business person, being available during business hours, and not because I set my own boundaries for how my clients interact with me. And if my clients know that I don't work evenings or weekends, and it's very clear to them, they're not going to have an expectation that I'm going to respond to an email that they send me on a Sunday morning. Now, do I check them? Yes, I'm just going to be honest. And I've found that if I do end up responding to that email, more come during my kind of off business hours. So really it's been about me really creating those boundaries around business, and also taking the time for self-care and taking that time, because I love what I do. I love what I do. And I teach self-care as part of one of the key elements of having a really strong personal brand and image. But I have to remember, am I practicing what I preach?
Yes. I actually started doing this a long time ago, where I don't check my email after I leave my desk at night, which is usually between 5 and 6. And I do not check email, because if I check them, then I'm tempted to deal with the situation. And I was finding, like, before I set this boundary for myself, and maybe you can relate to this, if something happens, or maybe, once in a while, like we have a technology problem and someone can't get into one of their programs. So if it shows up on my desk, I want to solve the problem, right? So now I'm stressed out on the time that I'm away from work. And I found that I'm a better entrepreneur and business owner if I just maintain those boundaries that you're talking about. And it just helps for me. And I'm just giving another strategy for people as they're listening in going, oh my God, I have this problem too. I just don't even check them.
Which is great. I love that.
And people laugh at me. Like, I have some mastermind partners who basically just work all the time. And they'll send an email out on a Saturday, and I don't usually check email till like midday on Monday. And they're like, I've been emailing you for days. I'm like, I don't check email.
No, I love it. I love it. That's great. And to take that as even a step further, that is a reflection on your personal brand. Because what it does is it means I'm very solid in my boundaries. Okay, that's a reflection on your personal brand. And that I have self-care into play. And so it's everything goes back to, A, taking care of ourselves, and B, what that's reflecting in your personal brand.
Thank you for reflecting that back. And it's something that evolved. It didn't happen that way in the beginning, that's for sure. But I think at a certain point you have to decide, how much energy do I want to have when I'm in business mode? And what am I going to do to recharge when I'm not supposed to be in business mode? And I honestly think women have a harder time with this than men, but having that discipline to really reinforce your boundaries are key. So I'm glad you brought that one up.
Right.
I also know that if you're in business for any period of time over about 2 to 3 years, you realize at a certain point there are certain things that work well and certain things that don't, and you figure out what do you need to focus on optimizing. Yes. So in your own trajectory as a branding specialist and image consultant and the evolution of that business model, what did you figure out? If I do this better, it makes my business better.
Well, I think it's delegating. And if there are new business owners, let me just say this. And interestingly enough, and I want to pull something in, the time to work with a personal branding expert is before you start branding yourself. It's before you have photographs taken. It's before you build out a website and create a logo and make videos. And so this comes into play here. One of the things that I found is that when I was able to sequence things in my business and determine what is it that I'm good at, right? I'm kind of going in two directions here, but I promise to bring it back together. What is it that I'm really good at? Where's my brilliance? Because we all have a brilliance, and I'm not saying that to do this, but I'm saying it to, we've all been given gifts. And what I know for me is that if I focus on whatever I'm good at and I get the best. So when I'm getting the best of the best to support me in the arenas, don't give me numbers. I don't want to balance my checkbook. All of the kind of behind the scenes stuff, technology puts me over the edge when it's not working. But I pay somebody to do that. And how I said I'd pull this together, I get the best. And if I had been smart and bit the bullet when I first started in business and said, you know what, I'm going to make the investment in hiring the best to help me on the support end, then it frees me up to do what I'm really good at. And I'm not exhausted when I'm going to a networking event because I've been handling X, Y, and Z over here. Because when I show up exhausted at a networking event, what does that project to other people?
Yeah. It's interesting. Delegation seems to show up a lot when we talk about optimizing. It's the people side of the business, getting the right people in the right places with the right systems so that you can do the things that you're best at.
Yes. And sequencing and really learning. So here is what I learned in my business that I in turn have taught my clients is that what happens first is the chicken or the egg. What do you do first and who do you go to? And so when I finally got my own sequence of events into play, I was able to develop my own personal brand that reflected and attracted other people. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about digital, so make sure that we talk a little bit about that.
Well, let's talk about it now because I'm getting ready to wrap you up.
Okay. So your digital presence it's one of the keys of a personal brand. Your digital presence is like in the olden days, you used to walk into a store and you opened the door and there was this little bell that rang and somebody was there to greet you and you had the scents and the textures and everything. Well, oftentimes the first connection that people make with you is your digital presence. Mm-hmm. And having that cohesive, really professional digital presence. And one of the things I really want to focus on is a photograph. Your profile picture is not a picture of you at last week's barbecue. As a business professional, it's important to have a photograph that matches your personal brand. And so that digital presence, it's 0.3 of a second is the amount of time that you have to capture somebody in a digital presence. And it's oftentimes their first impression of you. So focusing in and building out a digital presence that's cohesive and aligned and exciting and really is like, I always call it, it's kind of the flirtation of what shows up so that people say, I want more and I want to know more.
Yeah, well said. I'm glad you said that. And again, it has to do with that consistency. All the pieces of how people experience you, consistently bringing your best foot forward and being integrated, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, JuliAnn, do you find that there's mantras or maybe even a quote that helps to keep you inspired?
Yes. My favorite quote is, and it's like author unknown, but it's the feelings follow the actions. And so, the days that we don't, and specifically this is around wardrobe and really like when you're having a bad business day. Okay, let's step into that one first. When we're having a setback, a business setback, and we just go, oh my gosh, and there's times, I've flopped down on the bed and said to my husband, I want somebody else to run my business for me. And so on those days to be able to say, okay, I get, 0.3 of a second to feel sorry for myself. Now what action can I take in an arena where I feel like I have some direction? And even the smallest little action can shift how you're feeling and get you in forward momentum again. And it's the same thing about getting dressed every day and putting yourself together for your best every day. We wake up days and it's gloomy outside and we just go, oh, I don't want to put myself together. I don't feel like it. But when we do, and we take the action to put ourselves together and honor ourselves, we feel better. People interact with us differently. We interact with others differently. So the feelings follow the actions.
Yeah. And I think that's really well said. I'm a big mindset person, and as I've been teaching how to recode our money mindset for the last 4 years, I realized sometimes you have to take actions to create those feelings that you need to feel to make you feel inspired. You have to reverse engineer the process. It's not always think the thought that makes you feel better so that you can, take the action. You have to start where you can.
Yes, exactly.
I love that. It's funny. I had an experience of that lately too, where I was doing a speaking event. And I'd been kind of in the dumps for a while. I hadn't really been feeling my best. I hadn't been out speaking a lot. I left that stage so freaking on fire. But did I feel like going there and doing it? Not really. And so I think that's a great example of what you're saying. Sometimes you just have to do the thing that makes you feel the feeling.
Yes.
I'm glad you brought that one up.
Yes.
So, JuliAnn, I'm imagining right now that if somebody's ready to put their best foot forward, they might want to know how to get in touch with you. Is there a great place that we could share a resource or something that they can learn more about you and find out how they can get your great services?
Absolutely. Well, my website, they can either go to JuliAnnStitick.com. I'm assuming you'll have a link there.
Yeah, we'll put your URL.
Or successstyle.com. And this is the one thing I really want to say. Yes, I have my services and I have products, but I'm all about educating people. And so I have a great blog. I am always writing all the different elements around not only my personal circumstances and how they reflect into my own personal brand, but the examples of all the different things that we can do. And one of the things that's going to be coming out very shortly is I'm just putting the finishing touches on my ebook, 5 Keys to a Profitable Personal Brand. And so that will be available to people that have gone to my website and opted into our mailing list.
All right, so go to JuliAnn's site and get her report on the 5 keys to a profitable personal brand. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Yes, good. I like it. And I think, again, this is what we're looking at. We're ready to take things to the next level, or we want to get things off the ground in the best way possible. Focus on your brand. Focus on making sure that you are in sync and that you're really allowing people to see the best of you in the way you're expressing your image.
Yeah, exactly. It's really about fine-tuning who you are. What are all the fine elements of who you are, and how can you show up your best so that literally people say, I really love how that person shows up. I think I want what she's got. And that's when people start hiring you.
I love it. And I've seen that in action. So that's great. Thank you. Well, I know that we've created some interesting inspiration for you today. You're getting to take a look at how you're putting your best foot forward through your image and your brand. And I'm curious, did you have an aha or maybe even start to realize that maybe you could do a little work in this area? I'd love to hear your insights from today's show. Just head over to the blog at melaniebensonstrick.com. If you're listening on iTunes or Stitcher Radio, that's the place you can come over and interact with us and take advantage of free resources. We'll also put JuliAnn's website and her materials on the blog there so you have an easy access to her. And JuliAnn, thanks so much for coming today and sharing some wisdom, some powerful insight, and really exposing us to a new area that we can look at in terms of making our business and our life perform so much better. So
you got it.
Yeah, thanks everybody. And again, join us back here again next week for another really powerful insight on how to optimize your business and your life for better success. Bye, everybody.